Good morning. Well, for some of us anyway. Today's live stream is focused on this one tune, and there's a really good reason for that. I posted it in the Jazz Pianist group. I made a recording. I just sat down at the piano and was going through tunes, and I came across this one, as I often do, just kind of leafing through tunes that I have known in the past, and I spent a little bit of time with it, and I thought, okay, I'll just hit the record button, and I did. And then about 5 minutes after that, I wanted to take a break, and I listened to it back, and I thought, okay, well, I'll just post that, because I haven't posted anything in the Facebook group. If you're not a member of the Jazz Pianist group, by the way, it's a great group to be a member of. There's like 150,000 members worldwide. And I posted it, and it got a pretty strong reaction. That usually tells me a couple of things. One, people like the tune, and two, some of them liked the version and that recording. So what I decided to do, based on the comments and the feedback and some people asking for sheet music, is I thought, okay, I'll dedicate today's live stream to this song called The Shadow of Your Smile. And I played a little bit of it in the beginning, and it's obviously very different than the one that I posted in the Jazz Pianist group. I'm not sure if you heard it or not. But the premise is the same. It's like taking a song that a lot of people play like bossa nova, but I prefer it like this kind of style. So what I did was, based on the feedback from the group, I not only dedicated today to this song, but I made a piece of sheet music that we're going to follow along with, because it was requested, and I'm going to make that sheet music available to you for the next 24 hours for free. So some of you already downloaded it because I've been notified already on my phone. I don't know if you're still here, if you just came for the free sheet music. Oh, actually, a number of you. So let's see. Alan from Rockford, United States. And Ira from Georgia. And let's see. Steve from Fargo. Wow. I know that show. And then David also from the United States. And a few others. I'm not going to go through them all. But if you just came for the sheet music and you're gone, you're going to kind of miss the point of today. Nancy, what was wrong with that? Why are you doing that? Sorry, my wife is here making faces. No, I'm just saying, like, if you're still here, let me know in the chat area that you're still here. And we're going to go through the sheet music together. So let me pull it up on the screen. This is the sheet music that's available. If you want the coupon code, it's at the top of the chat area. It's called FREE424, free for 24 hours. That's the coupon code you need to use, and the link is in the description below. And I'm going to post it here. Let me see if this works. There we go. The Shadow of Your Smile. And we're going to go through this in detail because I think it's important to know where the voicings are coming from. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and write a little bit if I can. Let me do a screen snip here. And then let me see if I can pull up this version on top of the other version. Yep, it's there. Okay, so it might be missing the chords at the top, though. Let's see if I can move that down a bit. There we go. That's better. Okay, so this means that I can actually now write on the sheet music. So where we're going to start is right here at the beginning, which I think is a good place to start. And we're going to focus on this section right here. And I know that a lot of people just play the melody. And I think that sounds good, but what you're always trying to do as a jazz pianist is make a bigger deal out of melody by adding some type of chord progression. And in this particular case, what we're doing is we're using a combination of sixth diminished scale and what I call drop two voicings. So I think the easiest chord to describe this for is this one right here. So let's start there with this chord. So where does that come from? Well, if you take the bottom note and you move it up an octave, you get this chord. And then if you take the top note and move it down, you get that, and then that top note and move it down, and you get that. So it's an E minor 7th chord. I think that's fairly obvious. So what you're doing is you're taking the second inversion, root position, first inversion, second inversion, and then you're dropping the second note from the top to the bottom. And while that might sound complicated, I think the easiest thing to do is to play that and then just play the scale. And that is about as easy as you can get in terms of voicings. And if you look at the scale, everything is just going up the E minor scale, key of G. So there's one sharp. And then what you're doing is, if that's a destination chord, the two chords before it can be whatever you want. So this chord, if you look at this as part of the scale, often what you're trying to do is add some accidentals. So all I'm doing is adding an E flat because we're going to C. So think of that like a B 7 flat 9 chord, which resolves to E minor. So you're thinking, okay, let's use our drop 2 voicings, but let's also add some color to those voicings. This one's not from the scale either. It could have been a C natural, which is from the scale of E minor. But we changed that accidental to a C sharp. My point is that no matter how you use your drop 2 voicings, when you're playing a line like that, first think of the scale, and second, think of any accidentals that you can put into that to make the chord, which is preceding a straight chord, use some accidentals to make it more dissonant, to make nicer sounds. This is not something that is easily improvised. In fact, even somebody like Bill Evans, who was a master at drop 2 voicings, thought things through when playing the head. And there's nothing obviously more thought through than an actual arrangement, which I've written out here. So that's something that you can add to any situation where you're seeing a melody line that can be harmonized like this. It's basically 4-part harmony. And this is how choral groups sing 4-part harmony. They space the notes out a bit, pull some from the scale, and then make alterations where necessary. And I think it's a great sound. And now we're getting into F sharp minor. So this is an interesting voicing. It could have been just this, but I threw in a B natural, which is the 11th. So instead of just F sharp minor, 7, we're going to put an 11th on there as well, which is this B natural right here. And then we're going to B7. And these chords, by the way, are the chords from the standard itself. If you actually look at the jazz standard from the real book or whatever, these are the basic chords in E minor. Now, a lot of people play it in different keys. A lot of people play it in A minor, some D minor. Some people play it in F minor. I mean, there's a lot of different keys that people play this in. I don't think this is a standard key, but I kind of like the way E minor falls under the fingers, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we get to the soloing. It's like, how do you solo in E minor? What's some scales that you can rely on to make your playing sound great? By the way, if you just joined us, thanks for being here. Any questions that you have about anything that I'm talking about, and you want further clarification, please put them in the chat area because I'm following along with that. I'm not necessarily writing lots of things. I'll respond verbally and with some type of explanation to answer any questions that we get. So don't be shy. Throw your questions in there. There are no dumb questions, by the way. I'm obviously coming at this from an advanced jazz piano perspective, but if you're like a beginner or intermediate and you want clarification, I'm totally fine with that. So don't be shy. All right, so now here's where we get a Bill Evans concept again, where you're playing these notes on the outside first and then filling in the chord afterward. And what typically works, and we did this last week where we had Waltz for Debbie, where we were going from, can't remember it exactly. You know, it's like play the 10th first, in this case, the root and the third, and then fill in the chord afterward. But in this case, we're not just filling in the chord, which could be this, right? That's the resolved chord. We're going to go sus first, which creates inner voices. So you'll notice how both of these notes here move. It's just an obviously great way to reharmonize sheet music is to play inner voices like that. So play the 10th first, then fill in the chord. Where a lot of people would just do this. It's not nearly as interesting. And then on the E minor 7th, we also got some inner voice movement just going down in minor thirds. For those of you that want to know how do you choose inner voices, it's basically what sounds good to your ear. But for minor chords, anything from sharp 5 up to the root. So sharp 5 would be C. You get this sort of James Bond thing. Right? So those are good inner voices. But also the 7th and the major 7th, which is what we're doing here. So we're going from E minor to the major 7th to the 7th. And when you play those like inner voices, you don't play them the same time as the chord. You're basically creating nicer sounds. Inner voices, and then E minor. And then here we're going to A7. A lot of people don't do this. So what we're doing is playing an A7 chord, right? There's our basically shell voicing for A7. And then we're playing flat 9 and 13th. And then bringing the 13th down to be sharp 5 or flat 13. It's a nice sound. In context, like if you just played that by itself, it doesn't sound like much. But when you surround it with other chords and anticipate it with other chords, it starts to sound great. Show you what I mean. Hear that? It's totally different. You play it by itself, it means nothing. You surround it with like chords in some type of progression, it starts to sound great. Let's continue. We're doing the same thing with A minor 7th that we did with E minor 7th. Just go down in half steps, major 7th to the 7th, and then D minor and D7 flat 9. There's your inner movement like we did with B7 before. Now this one here on the G major 7th chord. I'm going to just erase things just so we know what we're talking about. So this G major 7th chord, this is the same concept as we had up here where you're playing the 10th first, in this case, root in the bass, third in the melody, and then you're playing your inner voices after. So this one right here is basically sharp 5 to 6, which is a common inner voice for major 7th chords when you're resolving. It's just such a beautiful sound. It's amazing how many jazz pianists I hear that are even professionals that don't use that type of inner voice to make their playing sound even more professional. I noticed that Ira and David and Dan are still here. Thank you for chiming in. I'm focused on the sheet music, so I'm not reading the chat at all times, but thanks for chiming in. I appreciate that. Again, any questions you have, just let me know. And I'm glad you went to download the sheet music, because now it's going to make more sense. It's one thing to download it and learn it note for note. It's another thing to know, where did it actually come from? Where do these inner voices, what's the thought process behind them? And that's what we're discussing today. All right, and for those of you that don't have the sheet music, use coupon code, what is the free 424 hours, free for 24 hours, right? And the link is in the description. So go and download it and you can learn it, but again, stick around because this is important stuff to learn what we're talking about. Up to the G major 7. Love that. And then here, what we're doing with this C7 chord right here is we're throwing in an F sharp, which is basically the sharp 11. And then resolving that to the 5th. Right? Keep the notes moving. Don't have whole notes that stay there for a long time. Don't have half notes that stay there for 2 beats. Just continually fill in at least every beat of the bar. And I think that's important. We can even do this, right? On the 4th beat of the G major 7. It's a little dissonant. But it works. And then here, and I wanted to really discuss this. I love the way that progression sounds. Let me erase this. And then let's focus on this section right here. So we're going back to drop 2, but the difference this time is we're using the full 6th diminished scale. Now, I've discussed the 6th diminished scale before. I have, 10 videos about what it is and how to use it. It's basically a concept where you're making every other note of the scale a diminished chord. The simple explanation is it's for a major 6th diminished scale. It would be C major 6th, and then every other note is a diminished chord. Get the idea? And that's what we're doing here. We're using C major 6th. Now, that might not look like a C major 6th, but we're basically taking this voicing, which is the first inversion, and we're dropping the 2nd note from the top down to the bottom, and there's our first chord in that progression. And then every other chord is a diminished chord. And where does this diminished chord come from? It comes from either the major 7th of the C scale, right? Major 7th. There's your diminished chord. Or I like to think about it like it's the 5th of the scale. G7 with a flat 9. And there's your diminished chord. C major 6th. A flat diminished. C major 6th. And then this chord, which is still a B diminished with an F in the bass. So it follows the 6th diminished scale perfectly. I should have practiced that ahead of time. Get the idea? So you can go up the entire scale using these drop 2 voicings. In this case, we're just playing 4 of them. Nothing new there. We've had that before. Let's go from the top of the page. I'm going to erase this for 1 second. Let me erase all of the markings. And we're going to go from the very top to here. And the thing I want to point out this time around is it's not just about the notes. If you've downloaded the sheet music, that's great. You can learn it note for note. What really makes it is how you phrase it with your playing. So it's not this. That sounds terrible and very amateur. So what you want to do is you want to phrase it the way it feels, like this. Right? Push it a little bit towards the end of the phrase. Right? I mean, it's a combination of great chord voicings, but phrasing it in such a way that it makes music. How do you learn phrasing like that? And I think the only answer is you have to open your ears and listen to the music. Really, not just struggle with the notes. Once you've got the notes under your fingers, just listen to it, and you'll eventually hear what good phrasing sounds like. Now, I could play it different phrasing. Adding extra notes. There is no correct phrasing. The correct phrasing is the phrasing that sounds like music. And that's an intuitive thing that once you've got these types of chord progressions under your fingers, the music basically flows out of you. And some of you are thinking, when am I going to get to that point? And the answer is, it gets easier in time. Everything about jazz gets easier once you understand where things come from. And I think we've done an ample job of explaining where this arrangement came from. Where did these chord progressions come from? And if you go back, it's drop two voicings, inner voicings, sixth diminished scale, all of the above. If it's a little confusing, that's just because it's in more early stages for you. And it will get easier, I promise. All right. Let's scroll down to the next section, and let's tackle this. I need to take a quick screenshot.
You have a question.
Apparently, there is a question. Ira says, is the reason you use the drop two voicing with the sixth diminished instead of just sixth diminished is because it gives the line more openness and space because it fits the melody notes at the top of the movement? That's exactly correct. So you actually answered your own question. The melody line is this. And we're using drop two voicings because if you didn't do that, it would sound like this. Which you can do, it's just a different sound rather than spacing out the notes more. So you answered your own question. It is to give it more openness. But the sound and the feeling of a drop two voicing, the way the ear hears it, is a very different thing than this, than closed voicings. Drop two voicings are more open and you get more bass. Make sense? Thank you for the question, Ira. Let me know if I've answered it adequately. Okay, here we are at the top of page 2. I'm going to put this here because I need it.
Somebody wants to know where they put their coupon code.
What's that?
Somebody wants to know where they put the coupon code. They're having trouble.
Okay. Somebody wants to know where to get the sheet music and how to use the coupon code. So let's go and do that together. So the link is in, if we actually go to the stream itself, which I have to go to.
I put it in chat.
Oh, Nancy's put the link in chat. Okay, so that's fine. So let me go grab the link in the chat area, which I don't see. Where did you put it? Oh, here. Okay, so that's going to open up this window. Can we see that on the screen? No, we can't. So what about this? Did that work? Nope. Properties. So Chrome isn't showing up because it's not listed here. Yep, that worked. So here we are at this page. And what you do is you add it to your cart. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, $14.99 for a piece of sheet music. Well, let me tell you how long it takes to put something like that together. I personally spent 4 hours writing out that arrangement. And I don't know about you, but I don't get $14.99 an hour. I get significantly more than that. And it's basically a lot of work, and you wouldn't find it anywhere else. So I think it's fair. But for those of you that are here, I'm going to reward you with free. So everybody's like, well, how do I get free? And it's right here. It says have a coupon code right there. And you're going to put in free for 24 hours, apply, and it should go to 0. And it does, 0. Proceed to checkout, and it will send you the sheet music by email. You still have to, obviously, put in your contact data. It's not going to give you the thing right away. So just fill this out. You don't need a credit card or anything, and just place your order. And it won't even, does it even ask you for a credit card? No, it doesn't. So just fill it out, and you'll get it. I hope that answers your question. Where were we? We were here. And now I need to take this off the screen. And I think we're there. All right. So what we're going to focus on right now, which I love, is this. Now, this is a very different thing. So we've discussed drop 2. Is that on your screen? Nope, only part of it. So we've discussed drop 2 before. Yep. That's not what this is. This is something different. And it is absolutely a Bill Evans concept. Now, I know we talk a lot about Bill Evans, but because I think he was probably the most prolific arranger of solo piano. If you listen to Bill's playing, it's very pretty. There's a lot of stuff happening. But I don't know if he's the originator of these voicings, but he incorporated much of what we're talking about here today. So again, we're focused on here. So what is that? The answer is it's triads. I think you can see that, but the concept is chord in the left hand or some type of arpeggio in the left hand. So we could literally arpeggiate it like that. But the reason why that sounds interesting is because you're taking triads from the major scale. Right? From the G major scale or the E minor scale, just starting on a different note. So in this case, root position E minor, but you're playing a voicing in the left hand that denotes more like E minor. So this is the 9th, the 11th, and the 7th of E minor, right? Because we're covering the 3rd and the root in the right hand. Listen to that sound though. What could sound better than that? Now, that sound right there, and I think we've covered the triads pretty well. The other thing you can do, by the way, is not just triads, but you can play thirds. Now, when you play these, you can't play them like this with the same fingers. You have to move fingers. So 1, 3, and 5 to 1, 2, and 4. Like that. Right? To make it legato. And again, phrasing. And then what we do here is we just have the root and the third and the fifth of C sharp half diminished seventh or C sharp minor 7 flat 5. We're arpeggiating. To F sharp 7. Very simple voicings, by the way. These are just shell voicings. Let's play the whole progression. We're back to where we were at the top. Here's where it changes. Nothing new about that, except a little bit different approach to it. You've got the ninth of D7, and you're playing a sus chord, and you're resolving these two notes, inner voices. Listen to that sound. See, again, if you just play a B half diminished seventh, it's okay. But if you do this, it has a whole different feel. Cool, right? And I need to get rid of this and take another screenshot of it moving down the page. And we're at the top of the page, so we were here. And then holding those notes and then playing left hand. Right? It's all about holding certain notes through. Holding these ones in the right hand, these two notes. Hear that? And then this, I love this. Okay, so what's that? It's just a diminished chord with the melody note. So E7 flat 9, this is your diminished chord. And that's what we're playing here. It's an inversion of the diminished chord built on E7 flat 9 from the third. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, take that voicing and just add the melody. The reason why I like this, you could do this with the B natural in the bass, but it sounds less dissonant than a C. Okay? Now, this whole next section is what I'm doing. Actually, let me grab a pen instead of that, and let me show you this way. Take a look at this bass line. A flat or G sharp, G, F, E flat, D. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take the chords from the original composition, but play, and this often happens at the end of a tune, play a descending chromatic scale And it's not completely chromatic because it misses out on the... Oh no, it is completely chromatic. A flat, G flat. Sorry, this is actually F sharp. Forgot. I said F earlier. It's actually F sharp. F natural, E flat to D. It's a complete chromatic scale. So what you're trying to do is fit the chords around that chromatic scale. So and you'll hear it. Listen to that chord. I'll talk about that in a second. Same chord, just different. Oops. And we're not just going to end on G, we're going to go to D sus. There's a reason for that, because you want the tune to keep going. You notice there's a second ending where it's going to G, right, with some kind of like church ending. Okay, let's go back and do this progression again from the A minor 7, C minor 7. Now that's part of the tune, right? Right? So what this is, and you notice that I put the chord above the actual chord of the tune. So we're substituting a B minor 7 for this chord, F7 sharp 11. And it's just basically a Bill Evans voicing, which is just thirds. There's your F7, 9, sharp 11. Sounds great, right? Listen to that. Oh, it's because I'm missing a line. I can't see a line. And there's the chord again. It's just, in this case, it's E flat 7 instead of F7. E flat 7 sharp 11. Okay. So I think what we might do now is we've pretty much covered everything about that. Let me play the arrangement from the beginning using the sheet music to make sure I catch most things. And I'll scroll down. You'll hear me pause a little bit at the end of the page as I scroll like to the next page. Just going to make sure that you're seeing the right one. Yes, you are. Okay. Here we go. Here's our descending bass line. Let's take a second time ending this time. We're going to go from the top of the page. A minor 7. I know you couldn't really see that. So G sus, basically. So you're going F sharp to E, inner voices to the 5th. F sharp to the 6th to the 5th. That's a lovely, lovely sound. And you could do one of these. Often you'll hear me do that where instead of doing something like this and then making it rich like that, just play a simple 3rd and root on the top. Like that. All right, let's check in with you and see how you're doing. So who has a question, Nancy? Alan. Where is Alan? Sorry, I can't get to it because it's... There we go. Alan, where exactly do I get the coupon code? Yeah. There, I don't see anymore. That's all I see. Maybe here? Oh, question on the intro. Is that a 6th diminished with drop 2 or just the minor scale with drop 2? It's actually, we discussed that at the beginning, Alan. I don't think you were here at that time. If you weren't here at the very beginning, that was kind of one of the first things that we covered. So let me do it one more time. This progression here is basically drop 2 voicings on the minor scale. So this. And then what we're doing is we're modifying some of the chords to be a little bit more dissonant. So in this case, it's not even a diminished chord. It's an A7 chord, the first chord, with a C sharp in the bass. So A7 over C sharp. And then this chord is a diminished chord, but it's an A diminished chord, which isn't a normal one from that scale, from the 6th diminished scale. So what you're doing is you're using the scale. Look at the top hand. It's all first inversion triads, right? And then in the left hand, we're playing our drop 2 voicing, but we're changing the notes. So the normal scale would be this. Like that, but it doesn't sound as nice as if you alter the bass notes by a half step. So it's using the minor scale, drop 2 voicings, but it's altering bass notes in order to make the chords sound a little richer. And again, these are things that you work out ahead of time. That's not something that you sit down and improvise like that. It's like you're playing drop 2 voicings, and then you're thinking, wow, that sounds really sort of like common for a first chord of the tune. It doesn't sound as nice as if you just alter it by a half step. Now, we could have altered it a half step down. Different sound, but I don't like it. I like this. Hear that? Okay? King Sax says hello. Hi, King Sax. Alan is saying sorry. I don't know. Maybe I did that not correctly. Alan says, the accidental addition is gorgeous, but how do you know how to do that? I don't. I'm just using experience, but also just saying, if I'm using the drop two voicings, can I alter any of the bass notes to make it sound more interesting? So I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good. It's not something that you do intuitively. It's something that you work out ahead of time, listening for the best jazz sounds. That's really what it is. You're listening for the best jazz sound. And again, it's the phrasing that really makes that sound good. All right. If there are no more questions about this arrangement, and for those of you that haven't downloaded it yet, we talked about how to do that earlier, but make sure you use the coupon code free 424 hours, free for 24 hours. Make sure you use that because it'll be free instead of $15, which I think is totally fair, by the way, for the amount of time it took me to put this together. But free is better for those of you. I love to reward people who show up for my live streams, and I think I'm going to do that like all the time. So if you show up for my live streams live from now on, I'm going to reward you somehow. I promise you that I will do that. Alan says, one note change. Amazing. Yes, one note, especially in the bass, can make a huge difference to the sound of your progressions. And I think one note change, amazing, is a great way to describe that. Now, what I want to do is discuss soloing. Because a lot of you are like, I don't know if you're at the soloing stage, but what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't try to solo from this arrangement. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, the chords change. It's outside of the typical arrangement. Two, there's way too many notes here to focus on rather than just whatever the melody is in a chord. And three, you got to scroll like 1,000 times to get through this arrangement and solo at the same time. So the best way to do this is to find a version in E minor, which I did. This is actually from one of the real books. And it's the same progression, same chord changes. So this is where I like to solo from. Let's start here. The very first thing that I'm doing with a tune like this is I'm playing it through a few times, finding some type of arrangement for the tune. And I know we don't have a lot of time for this. We got like 7 minutes. And I think that's good because I really wanted to focus on the arrangement. But if you're soloing, the first thing that I'm thinking about is play the tune through and find out what is the tonal center of the tune. And it's predominantly E minor. 2-5 to E minor. And then it goes to G major, which is just E minor anyway. That's E minor, it's just a different bass note. Then it's going back to E minor. So you could literally play E minor all day long. It goes temporarily into B minor, which is very close to E minor, because this is E minor here. This is B minor. Just take some of those notes and start here. Still B minor. You could play that, which is an E minor 11th chord, but it's a B minor 7th chord. So they're very closely related. We're still in E minor. Go to major. And I know I'm playing this really simply. Back to E minor. B minor. E minor. And that's pretty much all there is to it, except for the last section, which goes up to here. And then there's a 2-5 C minor to F7. And then we're back into the key of G. Okay. Because it's predominantly E minor, there's a couple of things you can do. One, you can just use a straight E minor scale. Let's try soloing just using that scale. We're not going to do anything else. haven't used anything but that scale. I mean, you know, how easy, what could be easier than that? Next, because it's minor, think blues scale. Let's just play the blues scale on the tune. I haven't played anything but blues scale. It's not the most interesting thing to do, but now you have two choices. You've got E minor scale, you've got a blues scale. The other thing is you can alter the E minor scale and put in an extra note to give it like a bebop scale, like this. And any extra note you add will work. You could add this one, or you could add this one, or you could add this one, or this one, right? There, you can add an extra note anywhere you like. Basically, the actual minor bebop scale is this. Putting in an A flat or a G sharp. So now we have this, the original scale, we have this scale, and we have blues scale. Now, the only other thing that I would recommend in addition to those things is to catch a chord now and then. So if we're improvising on the tune, let's start by just playing an F sharp minor 7th chord. And then scale. Let's catch the D7 chord. So we did F sharp, half diminished 7th chord. Blues scale. Catch the chord. Do one more chorus. Just says thanks. No, thank you. I really appreciate everyone showing up today. We had a few more people this week than we did last week. That's because on last week's live stream, which you should go watch, by the way, Waltz for Debbie, I didn't actually make it live. I was unlisted, so nobody could find it. So I'm thinking the whole time, where is everybody? And I literally forgot to put the video as public. Now, I did it shortly after I was done when I figured out my mistake. But I'm super happy that you all showed up this week. Let's keep building the audience. Invite your friends to come along. Remember, the free sheet music link is down in the description below. When this video renders and it's posted as a repeat, I will put the link in the corner as well, if I remember to do that, but it'll be in the description below. The coupon code is free for 24 hours. Free for 4 hours. And I'm going to do something for you every week if you show up at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I will make sure that I reward everyone for just showing up. Now, I know the lessons are reward enough, but it's nice to give away free stuff as well. Thank you for being here. My name is Paul Tobey. Remember us over at jazzmentl.com. And if you feel like it, write a comment below. I would really appreciate that. And share the video with your